Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Smart Spaces series of events. This executive conference caters to building executives, as well as the hardware, middleware, and software providers who are working to enable the next generation of consumer and property manager experiences in both the MDU and hospitality industries. This is our second year hosting this conference series, following many years of tracking the multifamily market in our research. If you haven't met me before, I'm Kristen Hannock, Research Director here at Parks Associates. Parks Associates, founded in 1986, has been covering the IoT market really ever since. Today, we cover all aspects of connected devices, systems, and services markets with a really special focus on consumers and on residents. Before we get started, I would like to give a big thank you to our sponsors for their support. Thank you, Cox Communities, Xfinity, NICE, Ventiva, Kwikset, ADT, Calix, Homebase, Skybell, Salto, and Dojo Networks. If you're interested in also getting involved, please reach out to Ashton Gumbrell on the Parks Associates team. Today, we're going to be doing a lot of talking about attracting and retaining residents, how companies are leveraging new technologies to better meet the needs and demands of residents at their properties. Before we dive into the meat of our discussions, I'm going to be taking a few minutes to share some new and exciting findings from Parks Associates' 2024 study of key decision makers at multifamily properties, a study we just conducted in the second quarter. Following this presentation will be a discussion with our keynote visionary speaker, Aaron Rudenstine, CEO of ButterflyMX, moderated by Parks Associates' own Dr. Jennifer Kent. Finally, we'll have our panel discussion where we're going to be diving into really the meat of how companies are approaching their prop tech deployments today, both attracting and retaining residents and also really tackling some of their key operational needs. So yes, diving into the presentation, I'm going to be covering three major areas where we are seeing some new trends emerge with the potential for major impact in this market. The first is trends in new technology adoption. So really taking a look at where companies are putting their money today, where technology adoption is. The second major area is going to be looking at what are the key challenges MDUs are looking to resolve today. So kind of diving into what are these specifically, how are MDUs approaching them, kind of really what they need. I'd say the third major area is really looking at this retrofitting market, which, as we all know, is an enormous market with a lot of potential. To start, the vast majority of companies and even individuals that own and operate multifamily properties have multiple technologies in place. 95% of respondents in our most recent 2024 study of 300 MDU owners and operators reported having at least one tested technology in place at the largest property in their portfolio, commonly a flagship property. Property video surveillance is the most commonly adopted, with intercoms and buzzers not terribly far behind. Smart door locks are increasingly common, as are in-unit smart thermostats, water leak detectors, and integrated lighting control systems. These technologies have a multitude of benefits, I would say, both for residents as well as for properties in terms of solving operational woes. Interestingly, almost 1 in 10 respondents reported having EV chargers installed on their largest property, really pointing to the growing need for EV readiness across the US market. EV charger deployment is increasingly tied to planned property renovations, creating opportunities for retrofitters to deploy other technologies as well. Another trend that we're seeing is the increased availability of smart apartment amenities for residents. The makeup of these amenities is changing over time as well, to better reflect the changing wants and needs of residents. When it comes to smart apartment amenity packages, smart thermostats really reign supreme. Video doorbells, however, are becoming increasingly available to residents, allowing residents to see who is at the door from the convenience of their own phone. Paired with modern video intercom systems and access control located at the gates or doors to the property, this is a powerful and in-demand resident amenity that also helps solve key operational challenges. Automated lighting and shades have been of interest in luxury properties for some time, but these are now also being joined by smart appliances, which offer, again, additional property operational benefits to MDUs as well, such as predictive and preventative maintenance, as well as the ability to better track inventory and warranty status. When it comes to why companies are adopting these solutions, as I said, it's really a matter of meeting these key business and operational challenges. Since 2020, we've been seeing above average rent increases for MDUs, which have helped to raise profits, but have also challenged renters who are dealing with overall price increases. Companies are now faced with the question of how to further raise profits without pushing really beyond what the market will bear. There is an increased focus on decreasing costs, managing labor expenses, reducing the cost of legacy infrastructure, as well as mitigating the impact of increased insurance rates. MDUs are really looking for solutions, not devices necessarily, but what the devices can do for them. So I mentioned the need to boost profits, as well as alluded a little bit to this conundrum. We do see that MDUs are adopting IoT and PropTech really for two main reasons: to increase operational efficiencies, so increasing what staff can do in a given time frame, eliminating the need for certain tasks, reducing operational costs, and so on, and also increasing resident satisfaction. So increasing the property's appeal to prospective tenants, lowering resident churn, and keeping up with neighboring properties. Historically, this has been a bit of an interplay, I would say. A lot of times MDUs are looking maybe to one versus the other. What we've found, talking to folks really across the board, is that the most appealing solutions actually tackle both needs, both operational efficiency and resident satisfaction. When we've asked decision makers how they categorize different families of solutions, we commonly see this type of grouping. Access control, although residents do like it, is largely considered an operational play. Same with smart thermostats in common areas, as well as water leak detection. Companies evaluate these solutions by the degree to which they increase efficiencies, save on labor costs, or prevent or mitigate losses. They also have benefits in terms of raising resident satisfaction. Solutions like intercoms, video surveillance, and smart thermostats in resident units, as well as EV charging, these are commonly considered to be more for residents, although they offer operational benefits as well. Companies evaluate these solutions by the impact they have on resident satisfaction and willingness for residents to join a community. EV charging, I would say, is still considered to be at an earlier stage of development, but we do see in our survey data, as well as talking to folks, that many MDUs are looking to the future, planning larger rollouts in order to appeal to the growing EV owner market. With companies increasingly tackling their operational challenges with technology, we are seeing some cracks emerge. Fragmentation is an issue for many companies owning multifamily properties. In our recent study, some 42% of key technology decision makers at multifamily owning and operating companies reported that the sheer number of smart building solutions and providers they have is a challenge. Across the study, respondents reported that they had an average of 21 different tested smart building solutions across their portfolios. As you can imagine, this is highly correlated with company size, with larger companies having even more. This fragmentation that companies are increasingly facing causes them challenges. Challenges with on-site staff and residents needing to learn and use all these different solutions. Challenges with managing the complexity when it comes to creating integrations and gathering the data that they need for business and operational decisions. And challenges even understanding what is in place and who is responsible for it. Companies have taken a variety of tactics to mitigate these challenges. Increasingly, they are avoiding fragmentation through integration and also through limiting the number of vendors they use. More and more, they are willing to trade off on having a best-of-breed solution with having a solution that already works with the systems they currently have in place. Companies are also looking towards a single sign-on for simplifying what is already in place, as well as new and more effective methods of training their staff and their residents. Finally, we see a major demand for retrofitting in the coming years, which we're going to be getting a little bit more into during our panel discussion, with 91% of companies reporting they have plans to retrofit in a smart building technology solution to their existing properties in the next 5 years. Many of these companies are looking to the immediate future to see what they can do in the next upcoming year even. Solutions and methods that can simplify the retrofitting process or reduce retrofitting costs are of great interest to all players in this space. Thank you so much for listening. If you're interested in any of our research, please make sure to reach out to our team. We're going to be back in just a few moments for our Visionary Spotlight with Aaron Rudenstine, CEO of ButterflyMX.
Kristen, thank you so much for that fantastic setup and sharing some of that research and your point of view on the market. I'm Jennifer Kent, Vice President of Research with Parks Associates, and I'm so pleased to welcome today our Visionary Spotlight speaker, Aaron Rudenstine, who's the CEO of ButterflyMX. ButterflyMX is a leader of next-generation video-first intercoms, really transforming the experience, the intercom experience in the multifamily space. Aaron specializes in building high-performing teams to launch and grow new technology products. Before he was with ButterflyMX, he was a co-founder of City Maps, which was acquired by TripAdvisor in 2016. He's also invested in Reddit, in FilmRise, among other ventures. And so we're so pleased to have him here today. Aaron, welcome. And Aaron, I think you're on mute. If you could unmute yourself.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Jennifer. It's a real pleasure to be here with you. And thank you to Park Associates for having me come speak at this great event, and appreciate all the work that you've put into making this possible. The presentation and the data that you're presenting is bar none terrific. In fact, I recently hired a senior person who sent me a totally random message last night. She said, I'm ramping up in preparation for my start. Can you recommend anything other than Park Associates as market research? Because they seem to be the leader, and I'm getting all this great information from them. So kudos for you guys for being all over the internet. And
well, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
So today we'll start. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, above and beyond what Jennifer just shared, and we're going to talk about the concept of smart living. How it, the different forms it comes in, how it can be incorporated into our everyday lives, into the buildings that we own and manage, and the benefits that comes from that. I also want to chat a little bit about why it matters and why it should matter to your team. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about where the industry is going, where smart living is headed. And I'll share just a couple of minutes about ButterflyMX just to provide some context, and we can do some Q&A. So first about me. So I'm the CEO of ButterflyMX. ButterflyMX is a property technology company. We've been around for about 10 years. About just shy of 15,000 buildings use our various products. It represents about 1.5 million apartment units that use our products. We are about 230 people. We are headquartered in New York City, but we are distributed across the country. In fact, even across the world at this point. I've been at the company as a board member for 7 years, and then as the CEO for 5 years. About me personally, my background is generally at the intersection of the built world and software. I've been working in tech and the built world for the last 20 plus years. And then at home, I live in New York City, and I'm the father of 4. And as anyone knows who has kids, you learn very quickly how to multitask and context switch really, really quickly. So I flex very quickly from a short order cook to a cleaner to an Uber driver, and then the next minute I'm arbitrating disputes. And that probably is the best training ground for what I do during the day. And it also keeps me really humble. Next slide. So what is smart living? Right? So smart living in a nutshell is using advanced technology in multifamily living spaces to enhance daily life for the people who live there, the residents, and for the people who work there, the operators. And it enhances the daily life in a whole variety of ways. It increases convenience for both the staff and the residents. It enhances the safety through various smart security systems, which we'll talk about. It improves the operational efficiency of that building through managing energy, automating workflows, and through all of that, it can reduce the expenses and it can increase revenue. And I want to get into more of that later. What you just heard though in the last presentation is that there is benefits to smart technology for the operator, and then there's benefits to smart technology for the resident experience. And the ideal is to find those solutions that bridge both of those categories and are at the center of that Venn diagram. And in so doing, what you end up with are solutions that drive resident engagement and resident satisfaction, while simultaneously improving the life of the folks who work in the building and driving the operational efficiencies that help with the bottom line of the business. Next slide, please. So why does it, is this the right slide? Can you go to the next slide? No, one more. Perfect. No, go back, please. Great. Thank you so much. So why does it matter? So there's a whole variety of reasons why it matters. The first is that attracting residents and retaining residents are the most important thing to the bottom line of your business. When we lose the residents and we have an apartment that sits vacant, we lose the rental income. We have people who might have left the property and maybe saying things that damage the reputation of that property, and so on and so forth. So the best and easiest way of driving NOI and asset value is to ensure the residents are psyched about living there. Secondly, nope, go back please to the previous slide. Thank you. Secondly, improving building operations. So there's a multitude of technologies that can be used to improve building operations. The first is, of course, automating the workflows that happen inside of a building by the staff that currently require a lot of human touch points, but that can be automated, at least in some part, by technology that enables the staff to be more focused on the resident experience. So some examples of that are package management workflows, right? We're all inundated with the number of packages that come into a building, inundated. And over the last few years, the only buildings that have package rooms and have like sophisticated package management solutions are the new buildings, the new construction, and the existing buildings that have invested in this. But not nearly as many buildings that should invest in these types of solutions have. And so it takes a lot of human effort to manage the number of packages that come in and out of a building and ensure that the residents are getting what they need without theft in an easy manner. Another easy example of automating building operations is through temperature control, thermal management. And so the example of that is thermostats that live inside of the apartment. While most of us think about that as, oh, that is a great resident engagement application because you can manage your thermostat from your phone, it really is an awesome operational enhancement because it allows the staff to create routines that anytime the apartment is vacant, you can automatically reduce the temperature. And when you have a prospect coming by for a tour, the temperature can automatically be raised, the lights can automatically come on, and so on and so forth. And so it becomes a way of improving the efficiencies of the building. Future-proofing your property is another really good reason why smart living matters. So in the yesterday's world, most of our buildings had solutions that were not really connected to the internet. They were basically hardware solutions, maybe on-premise, some on-premise software. But the problem with that is that software is evolving at such a rapid pace that those solutions can't be updated remotely, and they can't be updated without people coming in and often having to replace the actual hardware, and that's expensive. But with software and cloud-based solutions, it ensures that the properties can remain totally up to date with software updates as opposed to having outdated hardware every few years. And then lastly, boosting the NOI and the property value. Well, who doesn't want to do that? And you can do that by reducing the energy costs, as we talked about, by improving the operational efficiencies, and also by adding these premium solutions, these technology solutions that turn your asset into a place that people really want to live and a place that people really want to work. And that improves the value and increases the marketability of your property. So let me just give you a data point that I think pulls this whole thing together. I've seen two surveys recently. The first survey from NMHC said that 77% of renters would prefer to live in a property with smart amenities over one without. So on the one hand, that may not mean a whole lot because I would prefer to play for the New York Yankees, but that doesn't mean I'm going to quit my day job, right? But here's a data point that should make us much more concerned. 61% of millennials, who, by the way, are the biggest demographic of renters right now, say that you would actually move out of a property if it didn't have smart technology. Think about that. 61% of the folks who might be living in your buildings, if you don't have smart technology, they're leaning towards moving out. Not to say that they will, but the survey is suggesting that they would be more likely to move out without smart technology. Now, there's good news and bad news here. The bad news is that once a building is built, there isn't a lot that one can do about where it's located, what restaurants are around it, what amenities are there or not, and how large those apartments are. Those were all set when the building got constructed. But the good news is that using technology to radically transform the way that people experience living and working in that property, and using technology to radically transform the operational automations of that property and the efficiencies with which that property operates within, that is fully in our control. And across the 15,000 some odd buildings that we work with right now at ButterflyMX, what we're seeing is that the existing properties, meaning the retrofits, the existing properties, they are starting to invest more and more in some of these technology solutions. And these technology solutions come at different costs. Some technology solutions are relatively cheap to buy, install, and use. And so one example of that would be a video intercom or any intercom solution, because you're really just buying one device for the entire building. Another solution is much more expensive. So another solution, such as smart thermostats that we've talked a little bit about, you have to buy a thermostat for every single apartment unit, and then you have to install it in every single apartment unit. That's just more expensive. And it serves different use cases, and depending on what the building is trying to achieve and how quickly they want to achieve it, they will invest in one or both, or they'll do it sequentially. But I would urge everyone to be thinking about, what are they trying to achieve? How much budget do they have this year versus next year versus this year? What's the 2 to 3 year plan to taking an existing building that's been around for quite some time that hasn't really invested in smart technology and moving it down the curve of technology adoption? If you go to the next slide, please. So there are benefits to reducing expenses. And in a minute, we're going to talk about benefits to increasing revenue. So let's think about reducing expenses first. So package management. We're overwhelmed with packages. 86% of folks, of consumers, they use various delivery services at least a month. It could be packages, it could be food delivery. The staff in these buildings are totally overwhelmed. And if there are no staff in the buildings, the number of times the delivery person is pressing the intercom buzzer every single day is beyond. And more often than not, the resident is not even checking to see who's at the door. They're just like, buzz them in, buzz them in, buzz them in. It creates a security risk. It creates total a feeling of overwhelmingness by the staff. And having a package management solution invested in that will allow staff to complete the deliveries without much intervention. It allows the couriers themselves to self-serve. The staff will have to process 30 packages per day for an average 125 unit building. And if you can remove the need for that human intervention, we save the staff upwards of about 30 hours per month that it requires to process all of those packages. That's 30 hours that they can invest back into various parts of the building that improves the resident experience, makes their life feel less mundane and monotonous. Another big category is automating the workflows of a building, which we've started to talk about, and I want to flesh out a little bit more now. So residents move in and move out on a regular basis. We all know that. And having a smart access control system, a smart intercom system that automates all of that through the integration with a property management system, it can remove the need for key handoffs, remove the need for key retrievals. It streamlines that entire process. The staff gets that time back. They don't need to spend it on data entry. They don't need to necessarily show up to a property to let a new person in and ensure the old person leaves. All of that can be automated through smart access control, smart cameras that give everyone the ability to keep the property safe, secure, and efficient. I mentioned before this concept of saving time for the staff through automating property operations. Another category there is vendor management and visitor access. So all these buildings use third-party vendors on a regular basis, and those vendors need access to certain parts of the building at certain parts of the day. And in yesterday's world, usually a property manager would have to let them in, escort them around, keep an eye on them. But in tomorrow's world, that can all be automated through smart intercom and access control, through smart cameras that give you access to all parts, being able to view all parts of the building through your mobile phone. It frees up staff to continue doing the job that they are there to do while ensuring the vendors come into the building, navigate around the building in the way that you expect. In the process of all that, we improve the resident satisfaction, we improve the employee satisfaction, and we reduce resident churn and employee turnover. As we know, there's labor shortages across most industries. We're not unique. And so ensuring that our employees are having great experiences with our companies and with our buildings also helps to ensure consistency and stability over time. And that drives, again, resident satisfaction. If you go to the next slide. So increasing revenue. So multiple ways to increase revenue. One thing that I just want to call out is 85% of millennials have indicated that they'd be willing to pay more for smart apartments, more for smart technology that's used across the building. Multifamily executive research reported that over half of apartment residents are willing to pay at least $20 per month more in rent if their property had smart building technology as amenities, whether that be your smart access control, thermostats, intercom, package management solutions, and so on and so forth. All of those things help make the digital native, the millennial, feel like they're right at home and they're willing to pay more for that. So amenity spaces, as an example, many larger properties will have various amenity spaces, whether that's gyms, rooftops, pools, parking garages, and so on and so forth. And some properties have figured out how to monetize those amenity spaces by asking their residents to reserve them. But now you need a technology to manage that reservation system, or your staff becomes overwhelmed with doing it manually. And so access control that ties into a reservation system makes that amenity feel very premium, that residents are willing to pay for. For instance, I as a resident would reserve an amenity. The access control system would allow me, as the person who has reserved that amenity from 2 to 3, access to it, but wouldn't allow others access to it. So the access control system can flex based on the needs of the residents and the reservations that have been put into the system. Another real good example is leasing velocity. So smart technology, it can help you sign leases faster. It will reduce vacancy rates. Through that, it steadies the rental income. So how does it do that? Well, self-guided touring is a perfect example. So in yesterday's world, tours were done mostly when the leasing staff were available. Call it Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Self-guided touring opens up early morning tours, later evening tours, and weekend tours without a staff member having to be on site. But to make that possible, you need smart technology. And it's not that expensive, but it's an investment and it's a change of workflows. And a lot of buildings are now investing in that because it increases the number of tours that can happen outside of normal leasing hours. And it's also, and this is important, it meets the residents where they are. It meets renters where they are. Renters right now, we live in a world where renters want to self-service. They want to do it on their own time, in their own way. And buildings that are invested in self-guided touring are meeting them where they are. Next slide, please. So where are we headed? Artificial intelligence, AI, and centralization are two of the big trends in the industry. And it's going to radically transform smart technology. It's going to radically transform the way buildings are run and the way they operate. It'll take a few years, but we're going to all wake up in a few years from now, and the buildings will be running using technology that we barely understand today. So for instance, AI can actually be used for predictive maintenance. I think the last presenter started to talk a little about that. By looking at data, by looking at trends, by looking at occupancy rates across different parts of the asset, the AI can better predict when certain types of devices and systems need to be serviced and maintained or upgraded. Leasing. Booking a tour on your site and taking a tour, that has historically been done with people. But technology can automate all of that, and then smart access can be used to enable access into each individual part of the building in a safe and secure manner. So if you then look at operations and how to optimize that, how you optimize operations, AI will be not only able to optimize building operations based on real-time occupancy data, but it will also be able to analyze certain resident preferences like lighting and temperature settings, and then adjust it accordingly. Chatbots can be used to better service residents when they have requests. No longer do they need to call a staff person at the building to ask the same question that 100 other people have asked. They can ask a chatbot, and that's powered by AI. And all of those things will start to change the way people live and work in a building. Centralized management is another theme that's happening all across the industry. It integrates by taking operational workflows that currently happen inside the property by people, and then using technology, we're able to actually take a centralized set of staff who can then manage multiple buildings in a very efficient way and remotely. And that allows buildings to operate in a more efficient manner and ensure that the same type of amenities, the same type of resident experience is delivered to the residents. Let me pause there because I realize that we're coming up on time. And if we go to the next slide. So again, ButterflyMX, just real quick, founded 10 years ago. We make property access simple for staff, for residents, for couriers, for visitors, for vendors. And if you go to the next slide, this is an outdated slide, but we're in about 15,000 buildings today. We work with some of the largest property owners and property managers in the country. We focus on our technologies adopted by new construction as well as existing assets. And we care a whole lot about customer service and ensuring our clients have a world-class experience with us. And so the number of 5-star ratings is something that we're pretty proud of. And if you go to the next slide, we offer a suite of smart technologies. We offer access control technologies at the intercom level, across the internal doors around the amenity spaces, a smart package room, package management solution, vehicle access, smart lock for unit access, and elevator control solutions. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see a view of how all of this comes together. Right? Here's a suite of access control products, totally visualized as if it were a property. You can see how they work in harmony to make access into and throughout the property really simple. When we pause there, so that in the next 2 or 3 minutes, we can do any Q&A or if there's any questions from the panel.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron, so much for those insights. One thing I love of what all you shared there is that you really touch on all of the different ways that technology is kind of making an impact at multifamily markets. I think the reason that we're seeing so much traction for IoT and access control technologies and connectivity in multifamily is because it's not just sort of a one-trick pony. It's the resident experience, it's cost savings and efficiencies, it's staff turnover. There's all of these different angles that can be kind of made better by optimizing the technology. And I think you really, really hit on that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Since ButterflyMX, one of your last slides actually just showed how you're at all of these different places around the property and thinking about access control more holistically. Can you share, for the properties that you're dealing with, what are some of the aspects of access control that properties are most struggling with? I know you mentioned package management is a big issue, just securing the property and making sure the right people are coming in, integrating all sorts of different, fragmented systems is always a challenge. What do you see as the biggest challenge for access control right now?
Yeah, so there's a few, and I'll try to be brief here, but package management for sure, right? Lots of deliveries are coming into the building all the time. It's impossible to juggle these deliveries with other day-to-day tasks. And so technology helps to simplify this. It can allow recurring access for larger couriers like Amazon or UPS or FedEx or USPS. It can also allow for one-time access for deliveries, right? So there's a bunch of solutions out there that simplify package delivery and package management. Another big area that folks are struggling with is safety and security. It can be tough to balance security and simple access for residents. So most systems don't really have the technology to keep records of all the access events and don't allow the staff to gain access to those events remotely. But smart access control solutions do. All of that can be done without keys, and the access events can be accessed by the property in a remote manner. The certain types of access control systems also embed cameras, and so the various access events have a photo log that also a photography log. So every time there's an access event, a photo is taken, and that can also live in an audit trail, which again enhances the security of a building. Now you're getting to this question of integration. Tying an access control system into a camera system is really important. I give you a perfect example from my own personal experience. 3 weeks ago, I live in a big building. 3 weeks ago, there's a bike room. I went to get my bike. It was damaged. I went to the property manager. I said, do you have any video footage that would help me understand what happened to my bike? And he says, well, we have a camera in there, but you're going to have to watch about 4 days of video to find out what happened. I was like, well, that is nuts. Why can't we just like quickly scan through the camera every time that door was open? We could just watch the 20 seconds around every door event, and then we would know what happened. So that's a perfect example of how an access control system and a camera system should be integrated to create a better experience for the resident and a safer experience for the building.
Yeah, I love that example. Definitely a smarter way of managing video. We did have an audience question. I know we're at time, so just real quick, I wanted to kind of squeeze this one in if you had a quick answer. We had a question around the privacy concerns for the residents and maybe even guests around some of the prop tech solutions. Being a video first type solution, obviously, there are some sensitivities around privacy. Can you share a little bit about how you think about that at ButterflyMX?
Yeah, totally. So first thing to know is ButterflyMX, we actually don't record anything. We have a camera that all it does is take a still photo when an access event happens. So we are very sensitive big picture. And I think the industry is actually like increasingly sensitive to the privacy needs of residents, the privacy regulation framework that's starting to evolve in this country. And we take that, at least certainly at ButterflyMX, very, very seriously. In fact, in New York City passed a tenant privacy law like a year or two ago, and we were the first property technology company to comply with that. So big picture, it's a real thing. Privacy is becoming more and more important to Americans. It didn't used to be, but it's becoming more and more important. The industry absolutely needs to evolve to account for that. I think the biggest area that where we're going to start to see some friction is around facial recognition. We don't see that much in multifamily. We see it more in commercial. Certainly, we all use phones that use it today. But as that becomes more of an accepted solution in the multifamily industry, there's going to be more and more questions about how that interacts with the privacy regulatory framework and consumer preferences.
Well, thank you so much for taking that question. Unfortunately, we are out of time. So, Aaron, thank you so much for your time and your insights today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Jennifer, and thanks, Aaron, for that wonderful discussion. Next, we have our panel discussion on the topic of smart living, attracting and retaining residents. We have a great lineup of panelists here today, including Pratik Dhebri, VP and Head of Product Management at AvalonBay, Jeff Hoch, Chief Revenue Officer at ePropertyCare, Henry Pye, VP of Residential Technology Services at RealPage, and Steve Yahnke, Director of IT at Continental Properties. Pratik, we're very happy to have you here with us today. Can you maybe take a couple of minutes to tell us a little bit about yourself and about AvalonBay?
Sure. So good morning, good afternoon to folks on the call today. My name is Pratik Dhebri. I lead the product management group here at AvalonBay, which is one of the larger publicly traded multifamily REITs. So I'm sure a few of you would be curious on what product management really means within real estate or a REIT. So we formed this group a few years back, really focused on outcomes and what technology can deliver to impact the business results for AvalonBay. So few areas of focus for us really have been on how do we increase our NOI for every community or as a portfolio in general. And we formed a strategy based on 3 pillars, which are very relevant to today's topic, is how do we provide seamless, personalized experiences for our customers, which do include our prospects, applicants, residents, with a huge emphasis on mobile-first, self-serve experiences. The second pillar of our strategy is really focused on how do we provide 24/7 proactive and automated support for our customers on their preferred channel of communication. So even though we invest a lot in self-serve experiences, we know there will be customers who need special care. So how do we provide that in an automated fashion? And this is really leveraging some of the advances in artificial intelligence or Gen AI as well. And I would say more importantly, what we're also taking a look at is how do we simplify the business processes at the back end as well as automate many of the tasks that our 3,000 plus associates do on a day-to-day basis. So I'm glad to share that, we've made meaningful strides in all these three areas. We've delivered on the outcomes that we were expecting. And, we've been having a great ride with technology and real estate so far. So with that, I'll hand it over back to Kristen, and I'm excited to be a part of this panel. This topic is really near and dear to me, being very customer focused, and definitely having an impact on our business outcomes.
We're very happy to have you here with us today, and very much looking forward to hearing what you have to say about this. So yes, the three pillars I would say are very, very impactful to this topic. Next, we have Jeff Hoch, Chief Revenue Officer at ePropertyCare. Jeff, can you tell us maybe a little bit about yourself and about your company?
Sure, Kristen. Thanks for having me. As you mentioned, I'm Jeff Hoch from ePropertyCare. We're a national service provider of the Alarm.com and Point Central platform. And as you can see on the left, we work with multifamily, student housing, and build-to-rent communities. And the thing that I'm most excited about the Point Central platform is all the things that you see on the right side of the screen, bringing together things like smart thermostats, access control, surveillance, security, video intercom, even personal safety. So our business is interesting. We work with new construction applications, as well as retrofit of existing buildings. And we get to see a lot of different projects and the perspective of different owners. I think everyone that approaches the project has slight variations on what they're looking to accomplish. But I think even as Aaron mentioned in the previous segment, we could find the best of breed technology and deliver a differentiated access and security and smart solution for basically any building.
Yes, I think I'm very interested to kind of hear what trends you're seeing, kind of where people are going in this. So you got it right on the front line.
Absolutely. I apologize for my voice, but I'll muddle through.
No worries. I think it's that time of year. We've got things going around. All right. But yes, next we have here with us Henry Pye, VP of Residential Technology Services at RealPage. Henry, can you tell us maybe a little bit about yourself and about RealPage?
Yes, please. I think most people, if they're on a multifamily technology call, are familiar with RealPage, who provides a host of market-leading software as a service products. My group is somewhat separated from the rest of RealPage. We are, in essence, consultants who provide CAD drawings and construction support on average to about 300 developments and about 100 existing sites a year. And as such, we tend to work with, well, everyone. We work on build to rent to high rises. We work on everything from student living to senior living. And as a result, we work with Smart Rent, Rentley, Stratus, Point Central, let me think, Level, Brivo, BMX, GeoKey, Carson, all the lock manufacturers, all the legacy access control manufacturers. So we get to see a little bit of everything as different management and developers pursue their own strategies. So it gives us kind of an interesting portal into the industry because we get to see a little bit of everything. And clearly, I think, as everyone else will say in this panel, we're just on the cusp of smart spaces or IoT or smart access. And as I think they did such a good job in the keynote, we're just beginning to look at the technologies that will be commonplace in a few years.
Yes, I think we're seeing some enormous demand kind of building up right now, and it's about to spill over pretty soon. It's an exciting time. Kind of very happy to hear a bit more. So.
Yes, I mean it's a very exciting time, but it's also we're in a market now where cost and expense are extremely focused now. So we have seen both existing communities, developments, as well as the vendors of these services the IoT and access control and other so-called smart community vendors begin to focus on what is core to operating efficiencies. And there's a great deal more focus on what are the value drivers and what can I do to lower my operating expense. The focus is clearly on NOI.
Yes.
And if you can't generate additional revenue or help control expenses, you'll have a place.
Yes, a lot more nuanced than perhaps where we started years ago.
Well, multifamily is always swinging back and forth on a pendulum between, attractive amenities and operational efficiency. We're clearly on the swing toward operational efficiency around, but give it time, we'll be back around to amenitization.
Yes, it's certainly something I'm hoping to dive into a little bit during our panel discussion. But yes, great to have you here with us today, and very much looking forward to kind of diving into the meat of this topic.
Thank you.
Thanks. And now we have Steve Yahnke, a director of IT at Continental Properties. Steve, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do?
Hi, Kristen. Thanks for having me. Obviously, the director of IT, I work with all things technology with our company, but I really have been focusing on, for the past 5 to 10 years, the managed Wi-Fi experience and consequently the smart home experience. I am deeply passionate about our customer experience and really understanding what they want. We have about 20,000 units across 80 to 100 properties across the United States. So we really have a diverse community. Understanding what technologies that each different community is interested in. There are parallels. I have implemented all the technologies that Jeff had on his slide, and I think really understanding how we can improve our NOI by implementing those different features. I still feel that smart home is not the main component that's a driver, but it is definitely a driver, and it's just something that you need to have to keep up. And I really am excited to learn more. This is a great team, and thanks, Kristen.
We're very happy to have you here, and kind of definitely looking into diving into this topic and kind of getting to the meat of this discussion. So I think there's a lot of very interesting ground that we can cover. Really just to kick things off, I'm interested in learning a bit more about kind of this subject, kind of the value of PropTech in multifamily communities. I know we dove into this a bit during our kind of last kind of speaker session, but I am really looking into hearing maybe directly from Pratik, from Steve, kind of where are you guys seeing the use cases and drivers for these new residential technologies? Kind of you both have your companies, large footprints. Kind of where are you guys kind of looking for these new solutions? And Pratik, maybe you can kick us off.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say first and foremost, right, there's a lot of value in using technology, data, and artificial intelligence, right, in multifamily. I think we are just scratching the surface, in my opinion, in many use cases. And all of us as consumers, right, have used technology for banking, for utilizing services on our mobile devices. And I just feel in the last 5 years or so, the adoption of technology in our various use cases and lives has increased dramatically. So from a multifamily perspective and taking our customer back view, right, let's start with the prospect. So we are really trying to simplify the process of a person trying to find the best apartment for their needs. So we are trying to provide all the information about our apartment units, communities, and also tiptoeing with providing recommendations on what would delight the customer when they're searching for their apartment. This is to really avoid surprises and have a negative or a bad taste in their mouth. Then utilizing smart access, we've been able to provide self-guided touring to our prospects on their schedules. So this really is a complete self-serve experience where they can see various common areas, units of interest, using their smart device and utilizing smart access. Now we move on to the applicant journey. So we've made great strides in this area where we are allowing an applicant to enter all their information, get screened, sign the lease completely digitally, and move in without ever talking to an associate or another person. Now, this is definitely, we need to qualify residents, etc. And this is really done now in less than 5 to 10 minutes. So that's kind of really simplifying the life of an applicant and also driving operational efficiency for AvalonBay. And for our residents, we've kind of used a mix of technologies, or what I would like to call as point solutions. So we've invested in smart access to allow them to, right from entering the parking garage all the way to accessing common areas, or even entering the unit using a smart device or their mobile phones. But then we have also invested in creating a maintenance or office and service request experience by which they can create an order or a work order digitally on their mobile phone, get real-time updates, chat with technicians. Now, where we have seen the resident experience really evolve is we have delivered a lot of point solutions, and that's led to app fatigue for our residents. And they're like, can you just give me one app to do everything? And there's also a lot of confusion of what should I use when. So we are kind of trying to pilot all-encompassing one resident app that allows you to do all the activities with respect to your living experience end of this year as well.
Yes, and I think having that one app kind of experience takes a lot of fatigue, both off of kind of the resident experience and also the on-site teams who have to communicate this to the residents as well.
Absolutely.
Yes, and Steve, very interested in kind of learning what you guys are doing also at Continental Properties. Kind of where are you seeing maybe some of the use cases and the drivers for new prop tech?
I feel strongly in keeping it simple, the basics. Managed Wi-Fi, certainly, door locks, access control, thermostats, water sensors, depending on the type of building, may make sense. Everything that we can to keep the residents' life simple. What we, I think, struggle with, and I think what a lot of companies struggle with, is what is that right balance? We have community residents that are extremely technologically advanced, and then we've got some that the minute you hand them a phone and an app, it becomes very challenging. So it's really understanding that balance, really understanding what technologies make sense and where we can spend our money to get that increased NOI. That customer experience only works if the customers truly want it, and allowing them the freedom to implement some of the tech that they want, meaning still be able to control and put in lights and things like that within their apartment, not limiting them, but not putting too much out there, because we struggle with some of the NOI and some of the features.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so kind of being deliberate and purposeful kind of about where you go forward. Yes, I think also, Jeff, you raised a very interesting point, kind of talking about kind of the shift maybe around how the market wobbles maybe between resident interest and operations, and kind of what you're seeing there.
Yeah, absolutely, Kristen. I mean, I think Henry said it also, like if you can't get the projects to pencil either on revenue production or expense reduction, you can't do these projects. So you have to really hit it on both sides. I think what we're seeing in the industry, though, and a couple of panelists already mentioned it, there's a great proliferation of applications. So when we walk into a lot of opportunities, there's a desire to get to a single platform, single experience. And that's a very real problem that a lot of developers and operators have today. Just too many applications, and they're trying to simplify that.
Mhm. Yes. And then also, so we had this kind of discussion the last time we talked, really looking at what is maybe this balance as well between what maybe residents are interested in and what we are seeing is driving resident interest, as well as what is kind of maybe driving some of these operational efficiencies and kind of where the priorities lie. So really this panel discussion, we're talking a lot about kind of what residents are looking for, attracting, retaining residents, what are these amenities, how can we get this really great lifestyle, but there's also kind of this other side of the pendulum, which we alluded to earlier. So talking about, okay, with operational efficiencies, kind of where are we seeing maybe this align as well?
So I guess it's definitely a balancing act. I think when I'm engaging with a lot of the new clients, yes, they want to have a differentiated resident experience, and that's high on their list of things to do. But they're very concerned about the operational efficiency of the buildings as well. And when we show them the ability to, as an example, fleet control thermostats and push policies to an entire building, that's a huge play for them, and they see great benefit that could potentially come from that. So I think every group has their own view on how far in they want to lean to the technology. And I think, when you're looking at a platform or choosing a product, you have to see, like, are some of these features done at a macro level, and then how granular can you actually become in some of the access policies, video policies, water management. There are differentiations between platforms that allow even deeper control.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I can probably add here, Kristen, one of the use cases, right, that kind of meets the needs of our customers, which is to have seamless personalized experiences, is smart access, right? And we had Adam talk about it. So from a customer standpoint, it's seamless because yes, you can just open the doors or the access that you want using your smartphone. But if I have to equate it with operational efficiency, as Jeff was mentioning, it actually prevents a lot of operational cost with lockouts. So when we looked at, okay, what is the number one reason in the middle of the night for people to call the office or the maintenance staff is lockouts. So the maintenance staff does not need to be on site, open it with a key, but rather they can just use a portal wherever they are and give them a temporary access or so. It also allows with allowing vendors to come in, manage that unit, or let's say make ready that unit using smart access. So you can basically control the entire building from a remote distance without being physically present to meet the resident or meet the vendor.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I'd say that's kind of talking to lots of folks across the industry. That is an enormous benefit. So removing a lot of headaches from folks. Henry, I'm very interested. So you occupy, as you were saying, extremely unique space in this market. What are you recommending maybe to companies now in terms of kind of how they should be approaching and thinking about and actually designing these solutions?
Rule number one is please listen to your community manager. Importantly, I don't know if I have a solution that fits every type of property and every type of renter. It's still very fragmented. These solutions are still relatively young. So as age changes, lifestyle segment changes, location, the type of communities, you go from student to conventional to senior, you have different needs. You have management has different operating systems, different procedures. So a lot of this, I think most people would agree that managed internet, those community-wide networks, and some level of smart access where you have controlled parking, building and amenity area access, unit access, and guest access, combined in some level with your property management solutions, are the two keys, that kind of smart access and broadband. But how that fits in a fragmented market across different property types and different locations with different lifestyle segments is where it becomes a little dicier. And it really comes down to what is the goals of this community? What kind of renters are we attracting? What is the rent profile and things like that? And that's why right now you have so many different vendor options and so many different levels of cost. You know, quite literally, there are solutions that are twice as expensive as other solutions, both on a CapEx and OpEx perspective. Mm-hmm. So really, with that developer and their manager kind of trying to narrow it down, you know, what are our primary goals? What are the big ticket items that are important to us? You know, things like self-guided tours, especially for a development where that's much more likely, or maintenance portal integration. You know, those are the big ticket items on that pendulum shift we talked about earlier with regards to operational efficiency, but there are probably 20 or 30 different smaller items that you go through. But in a tight market we have today with low transactional volume, relatively low development compared to 2 years ago, it's gotten tighter. So you're trying to really nail down exactly what is absolutely necessary, because that's probably all we can afford. But again, the answer is going to change depending on the community type, location, renters, and the management systems your management partner is utilizing. You know, are they using RealPage? Are they using Yardi? Are they using Buildium? Are they using, Entrada? There are a lot of different choices. You know, are they planning in their budgets for self-guided tours or maintenance portal? Do I have 110 doors, or do I have 8 in a clubhouse and some site fence? You know, do I want to go to a smart solution with an intercom if I have 20 independent access controlled buildings? Mm-hmm. It's going to differ. It's going to change the math. And then you've just got to figure out, okay, given the new math, what can work and what matches up with management strategy and their back office systems. And it isn't easy today. As it matures, I think you're going to have these solutions begin to be a little more homogeneous and apply across different products and lifestyle segments better. But today, they tend to have strengths and weaknesses, and you're kind of feeling it out with the developer and the manager as to what fits best for this community.
Yes, an enormous number of kind of moving pieces there, especially when you're looking at, okay, what is the trade-off for this community versus what is the trade-off across my entire portfolio?
Well, take self-guided tours. They work in some lifestyle segments and not in others. Strangely enough, it tends toward the younger demographic, but we almost never use it in student living, and that's because we're also marketing to the parents who want to see people. But once they're out of school, that is the primary focus. You know, that new garden style outside the suburbs, that so-called attainable or more affordable, luxury product is the one that's most focused on that. And, 30-year-olds is the one that's most focused on self-guided tours today.
Mm-hmm. And actually, so you're raising a very interesting area. So one of the things that I'm really hoping to learn more about are kind of what is going on in this current market today. So as you mentioned, there's a bit of a slowdown kind of going on with construction. So it sounds like retrofitting is increasingly becoming more and more important to companies. So kind of where are we now with this? Maybe kind of where are companies kind of prioritizing when it comes to retrofits and figuring this all out?
There is an incredible interest, and the lion's share of the market and opportunity is in retrofit. Yes. The problem we have is transactional volume. The buying and selling of assets is all at an all-time low. And generally, these big, refurbishments or retrofits happen when you can capitalize it. You're acquiring an asset and it's part of your acquisition note. That isn't happening now. Now, we are doing retrofits, but something is kicking them over the hump. People aren't necessarily spending a great deal of money on assets right now. There's no transactional value. There is a great deal of interest, and there, to be quite honest, a great deal of need. Almost all existing assets have antiquated systems. They most likely have, when I talk about guest access, building amenity access control, parking, and unit locks, I could have 4 different systems, all of which are maybe be updated. I can't do self-guided tours. I can't do my management portal integration is crippled to an extent. All these new things I want to do, we can't do.
Mm-hmm.
But access control is expensive to retrofit. And as I said, again, you just have to play the market. There are solutions that are half the price of other solutions, both CapEx and OpEx.
Mm-hmm.
Now, solutions may not be as full featured depending on what your manager needs to do. And that's where you get into the art of it. What fits, how can I afford it, and everything else. But you're correct. I mean, long term, it's the existing sites people should be focusing on. They have the need. They're going to do it. We're just kind of in a time now where money is tight.
Kristen, Kristen, what I was going to say is I think a lot of people also have a belief system that if they don't have a managed network, they can't do a smart solution. So a lot of the work that we do and the strength of the Point Central platform that we're partners with is the ability to bring connectivity to the units over cellular. And by doing so, it eliminates the need of this gigantic going in OpEx or CapEx rather to put in a full network. So, that makes the retrofit reachable for a lot of the existing properties.
And Chris, we've talked before, cellular is a much more viable product than a existing product, especially something that isn't under the modern ANSI codes. It doesn't have lowy windows and radiant barriers and things like that. And I think you're going to see a lot of it because cellular is a wonderful backhaul, and there's going to be other solutions coming up. I will caution once you get into access control, there are certain things that can't run off cellular access control. But for the most part, your hubs in the unit, most of your other IoT or smart community technology can, as long as you have good cell signal, which most older properties do.
I think an enormous part of the market are garden-style communities, which it's perfectly fine to just put a hub maybe in whichever place you need it to work, and it'll be fine. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there isn't a solution that does not require internet connectivity, one way or the other, be it cellular, Wi-Fi, LoRaWAN one day or soon.
Mm-hmm. So something that I'm kind of also interested into digging into maybe a little bit more would be looking at kind of how maybe today's market has changed versus just a few years ago. Kind of what are maybe residents expecting as standard? Kind of what is that experience of maybe walking into a new unit? So kind of any thoughts? I can send this to someone, or if anyone wants to.
I mean, Pratik can tell you, and Steve can tell you as well as I can. I mean, especially for developments, the product's completely changed in 2 years. A few years ago, it seemed like half the properties were in urban centers and in concrete and steel.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably less than 5% of the new developments today. When you look at 2024, the vast majority of the developments are outside the city centers and wood frame or modular. And that goes more so to a rather unfortunate and large increase in construction costs between 2022 and 2023 that disproportionately hit our more expensive product types made with concrete and steel. Mm-hmm. And that has changed, the type of properties we're building. It's the type of renters we're going after and a lot of other things. But today, unlike 2022, the so-called standard property is a 3-story walk-up some 20 miles outside the city center.
The resident expects a certain level of tech at the new property, but it doesn't seem like we have to go overboard. I think keeping it simple, and in these times when we're really fighting for every dollar that we can get, keeping the basics there is really access control. I know we say thermostats, your old school thermostats, it's really great to be able to connect to them, and it's better on the property management side. But truly, once you set a thermostat, most folks don't look at them. Mm-hmm. Access control, they touch every day. Letting people in that front door, having that video access is extremely important. And high-speed internet is obviously the core of all of this. You can do retrofits very cheaply, as Jeff stated, with cellular, but you still have to have some sort of fast internet. I think as you're fighting for dollars, all that next level items, and they're small items, there's lots of little things you can do to increase operational efficiency, but we just don't see the ROI in that yet. Air exchangers, which sound wonderful, and you might be able to save you some money, and they might be able to improve your air quality, but when it comes down to it, it really is a tough sell when you can't get a payoff for that.
I mean, a few years ago when we were on the amenity side of the pendulum shift, I mean, you were putting a hub in a unit because you wanted to support, shades, you wanted to support smart lighting. You had all these advanced things you were looking at. We were really into the amenities. We need to rent this. That's where the premium is. Today, it's managed Wi-Fi, smart access. You throw in a thermostat because essentially it's the same Honeywell T6 you're going to throw in there anyway, so you might as well connect to it. And that's it for most of these properties. Again, you're building a low-rise, cost-effective product. You're focusing on your core things that go directly to operational efficiency and revenue, which is managed internet, smart access, and we throw the thermostat in with maybe a leak sensor on appliances, especially in product types like purpose-built student living. They never report leaks, and maybe you'll talk to Conservice or RealPage about smart water meters for your fixtures, but it's really much more focused today. We've really narrowed in that IoT smart rights focused on the absolute critical components that directly deliver to revenue or cost savings. And, we're no longer talking about smart shades. We're no longer talking about VRF integrations through BACnet. We're talking about a simple thermostat and a split system electric.
I think, Kristen, what's also changed though is the type of housing that's being delivered. I think everyone on the panel would agree that a smart lock and thermostat is kind of basic table stakes. But as we move into products like the BTR world, where there's garage doors, there's a front door, there's a back door, the use of video doorbells, even security panels in the units. These are things that we're seeing in the marketplace becoming important to that housing type. And kind of as Henry mentioned, you have to kind of dial it up or down based on what the form factor of the housing is. And then even within that, ABC class. So there's a lot of variability out there. But again, to me, the basics, lock thermostat, and then dial up or down from there.
Yeah, to add on to what Steve, Jeff, and Henry said, right, as I think when the resident walks into their apartment unit for the first time, right, like what are they truly expecting? Like they first of all want to have a very pleasant move-in experience. It could be completely digital or assisted by an associate. But then if you ask them, you now need to go call someone to, let's say, pay your rent, or even enter an antiquated portal which feels like the early 2000s, where I cannot do it on my mobile phone or I cannot chat with someone. I think we probably need to understand from where the customer is coming from. Like people are no longer wanting to talk to people. Like that's something we have seen in certain demographics. Like, why can't I do it on the app? Why can't I just chat with someone? Why do I have to call someone or walk to the front office to drop off my rent check? So those are some things which, from a customer standpoint, are you reducing the friction? And I believe in many cases, when you reduce the customer friction to self-serve, I think it also leads to operational efficiency. And the other thing that I'd also kind of like to call out is folks are not just looking for, four walls and a door and windows. They're also looking for a sense of belonging or a sense of community. So are we truly enabling features that will help them feel belong to that space, right? So, maybe conversing with folks who are staying in the same community, maybe some socials, etc. So I would say with during the last few years with isolation of people, I think the whole thing around the sense of belonging as also sense of community has probably even gone up a few notches.
And I think it was a very good point about build to rent. I mean, build to rent probably, without a doubt, spends the most per unit for new developments on technology of any other segment, with strangely modular probably not being behind it. And it's generally because these developments and communities tend to rely more on technology for self-guided tours for a greater percentage of their leases. I mean, the average build-to-rent community doesn't have a leasing office large enough to have enough leasing associates to get all that traffic. And some of that is true of some of the modular products. And that's what I'm saying is that, as I think Jeff and Steve and Pratik went into, it is very much market-specific, product-specific, renter-specific. But build-to-rent in particular is a market where you generally see a lot more technology spend, if for no other reason than it's a lot more expensive to run fiber out to each individual home than it is to an apartment. But also, you know, the average build-to-rent unit has 2 electronic locks. It does, as Jeff mentioned, very often have a video doorbell. You just have more. It's a bigger unit.
So
You also have a customer base that's spending more money and they expect more, typically on build to rent. So you have to have those built-in amenities. They're expecting a home, and they are willing to spend the money on it. A little bit different than a lot of your one-bedroom apartment communities.
Have more doors. What else are you going to do with the garage door? If you put a mechanical lock on it, you've got to get a handy track or key track.
something that I would like to get into before we get into kind of audience questions would be really understanding how are kind of these increasingly complex technological amenities really marketed to residents. Like, how do they understand them, kind of grasp the lifestyle impact and the value? Especially, I'd say, kind of in a scenario where you maybe have a self-guided tour, you don't have somebody with them, kind of walking them through and explaining kind of what the technology is and how it works. And maybe Pratik, you can kind of kick us off.
Yeah, so I think what we believe, right, is if we kind of set the right expectations with the customer upfront. When I say upfront is when they're searching for a unit, how do we make available all the technology features on our community websites or even the unit amenities, right? So if you kind of show them the customers, allow them to search using even sometimes natural language search, right? Then that kind of sets the right cadence up front. And when they tour in a technology enabled fashion, which is completely self-serve, if they don't want it, they can never talk to an associate. We're kind of setting them on the right path. That's what they would expect once they start staying within an AvalonBay community. So I think it's probably setting the expectations up front and then really allowing the user to find the right apartment that they're looking for. Because not everyone would value the same technology amenity in the same way. So let's say if you've got a nanny or a dog walker, you want to provide access to that person. Yes, I am looking for a community with smart access enabled so that I can provide that access to that person instead of giving a key or doing something else.
I think, Kristen, I think training and enablement is a big deal and probably under discussed in the glory of technology. I think we all are excited about, we could amenitize all these units and do great things. But as we deliver these type of products out to communities and residents, we spend a fair amount of time training the on-site staff, and we leave behind guides that, live on forever for the residents. It's not entirely set it and forget it. I think the systems are not overly complex, but there are questions that people have about them. And I think it's probably under discussed in the industry. Like, what really constitutes a good, healthy deployment? It's the training that you put into the properties. A lot of work up front.
Yeah, I personally would argue we don't do a very good job in the industry. In particular, I'd be interested in your viewpoint on this, but I mean, we have a problem in which, especially on developments or in a property takeover an existing site, we throw years of information at a management team. And on a development, often it's the initial part of the management team. It's not even fully staffed yet. And we expect them to have perfect recall of all of it and have 24 hours a day to read and attend training sessions. On top of it, the way we design our websites and our communications, we've gotten very good at getting people noticed. There's various different avenues for marketing these days. However, when it comes to explaining the technology and community, we tend to fall back on the old bullet points. Hey, we have smart locks. Hey, we have access control. Hey, we have smart thermostats. We never tell the story of how it's integrated. We never actually market that. And it's a problem, because if we're going to spend all this money, at least some of that justification is based on the fact that it's an amenity that's going to make the revenue, and they're going to pay a premium.
Mhm.
Not, we need to actually realize that. And to do so, we need to market it.
Mhm.
Do people pay attention to there's some companies that specifically market and say this is an approved community? I don't believe there's something that exists that says, hey, this is a smart approved community. They have that within Wi-Fi and you can market that directly. There's not really a service that says, hey, this is an approved smart community and we know that they have all this stuff. Is that something that could be coming to the market?
I don't think so. Just it'd be difficult. And some of the broadband ones I think there's value in them, but if you look at the questions they're asking, it's probably not the most comforting responses. But you have to tell the story. It has to explain the ease of use to the resident. It has to explain the value to them of anything. If you are expecting them to compensate you for providing something to them, it behooves you to actually explain it to them.
Mhm.
And sometimes we have a tendency of just kind of putting it out there and expecting them to use it and value it innately. And I don't think that's realistic. I think if we're going to spend the money on these solutions, especially with the idea that there's a rent premium attached, it's in our best interest to market it and explain it to them.
Yes, it seems like over the years there's been a shift kind of away from a lot of folks maybe reading materials and more towards kind of consuming information in the form of videos, especially short videos. Is there any appetite for not necessarily an advertisement, but more for an informational kind of storyline here, demonstrating to residents how this all works, maybe demonstrating also to on-site staff how these solutions kind of come together?
Yeah, and some people have. I mean, you have seen certain, especially of the largest property managers, do a much better job in that education, and literally the entire communication on their website and social media and everything is more of a story, or lots of small stories depending on your appetite. I think Greystar has done a very good job on their limited product, and as have others. But unfortunately, those are the exceptions to the rule today.
And I think I can take that from an associate or a employee perspective. Is we deployed a digital adoption product for all the new digital products that we are launching, and these are, think of it more as bite-sized training content when you need it in completing a particular task. So let's say if you want to finalize a lease or add an amenity to the lease, then can we show the associate who's trying to do it right then and there itself, even detecting that the associate is actually struggling to complete that task, and have a pop-up saying, hey, this is how you would finalize the lease or add an amenity or some kind of add-on to the lease as well. So I think that's helped a lot. And we started deploying this with one product initially, but now it's probably requested across all the digital products that we have.
All right. Yeah, so kind of advanced automated help. Very interesting. So yes, if anyone else wants to jump in, now's a great time. But I would like to tackle some of the questions we have in from the audience. All right, great. So we do have one in kind of the very first one aimed towards Pratik, saying that it sounds like a very big effort to move everything to one app. Can you share how you're evaluating vendors for that, or is it being custom built by AvalonBay, or kind of any other lessons learned in this centralization effort?
Yeah, a great point. So I think the approach we took is, again, I'll probably talk about our general build versus buy approach, which is, yes, we are building capabilities that we believe are going to be differentiators for us in the market. And then we are definitely buying or leveraging capabilities that we believe are table stakes or everyone needs them. So coming to the resident app, yes, it's a huge effort. And what we did is we want to leverage capabilities from certain vendors where we believe they are the best in that field. And then really our secret sauce is to bring all those disparate experiences together in one unified fashion so that a resident is not lost using multiple apps or not knowing whether the left hand talks to the right hand or not. So I think that's what we believe is our secret sauce or a secret glue in integrating all these experiences together in one place, and then definitely making sure it integrates with our backend property management system, billing, financials, etc. That will help us, be much better in serving the customer as well.
So yes,
Kristen, I
centralizing. Go ahead.
Yeah, Kristen, I think there's two worlds that are sort of coming together. So there is the rise of pure play resident experience apps, where they're coming at community building and things like that as a first play into the multifamily world. What they're also realizing fairly quickly is they need to start doing things with access control and some of the things that the pure play IoT platforms began with. So there's kind of a convergence, like top down and bottom up, where people are trying to meet there. So resident experience is definitely on our radar as well. But then also when you're looking at solutions, and I think products did a good job touching on it, you have to have APIs and other ways to still fuse things together so you could get to that one single pane of glass.
Yes, a lot of needs for some of these solutions to kind of merge things. APIs especially are of great interest.
But Chris, it's important to understand these sites with one app that does everything are the needle in the haystacks right now in the overall market. And the challenge we have today is if you're deployed with one system, regardless of what their sales team tells you, if someone buys that asset, them switching it over to what works perfectly with their one app is not easy or inexpensive. I don't care what the access control boards or which wavelengths readers they're using or whatever it is. It's painful and it's expensive. And that's what we're looking for when we talk about the industry maturing, is maturing to the point in which we can take that one app and move it across platforms and have a similar feel. And we're not close to there today, but that's where we want to go.
Oh yes, it's
our ideal is going to exist on a few boutique developments for each company. And then we're going to have the mix match, which is the rest of our portfolio, but we'll get there.
Yes, I think I shared a data point a little bit earlier where the average company had over 21 different smart building providers. And then that's for everyone of all size. And if you look at larger companies, that goes up quite a bit. So that's a lot of fragmentation. But yes, so certainly a lot of kind of development to be done in this space, but also a lot of benefit as well. So we had another question in from the audience kind of asking how you guys are measuring the monthly cost of smart technology when selling a property.
The cost of the revenue. I think those companies, and the cost doesn't matter as long as the revenue makes sense. And to Henry's point, when we purchase an existing property, we have to do a changeover because it doesn't fit with our operating system, or a small nightmare that certainly can exist, and that's going to be some of your heavy costs. If you already have a perfectly operating building and you can show your revenues, I don't see a lot of concern with the upfront cost versus what you're getting out of that.
I would do your due diligence. Some of the IoT or smart systems rely on various third-party partners, especially for aspects of access control. Be it the intercom, the access control parking, or even the door lock. And if you're not careful, you can end up with not one bill, but 4 or 5 bills that add up to your smart apartment, more than doubling what you thought you were going to pay. So it is important to try to nail down and do your due diligence into, what they've been paying for their bills for the last 12 months and getting copies of all the contracts and actually bothering to read them. Because you could have an IoT platform for $5 and find out that the corollary services add up to another $7 a unit per month.
Yes, and I think kind of weeding through that is very important to a lot of companies before they make the purchase or just understand kind of what they have in their portfolios.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I'm afraid that's about all that we have time for today. So very happy to have you all here with us. I think it was a great discussion. So a lot of learnings.
Thank you. Thanks for hosting us.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.